All right, so we've done the first 3 steps now. Not so bad. Adding a favorite button, that can't be too bad. Can't be that different from what we just did. All right, so just making a note of the fact that we want to record whether something is a favorite in the array. Just right off the bat, on the flick object here, I'm just going to initialize favorite to false. Not a big deal if you didn't do this, but may as well. Let's just throw favorite false in there by default. And then let's add a button that will change it to true. So here's render item, which is now getting a tad long. Here's add a delete button. Let's add a favorite button too. Add a favorite button. And it's going to look a lot like that. We'll create a button, const fav button equals document.create element button. Fav button dot text content equals favorite. Favorite button dot add event listener. What are we listening for? We're listening for a click. What's it going to do? It's going to call a function that doesn't exist yet. And we're going to have the same problem with this, I'm sure, if I don't use an arrow function. So probably just use an arrow function. This dot, I'll say toggle favorite, because let's make it so that it'll either favorite it or unfavorite, depending. And I'll pass in the flick. And if we did want to make a note of the fact that there's an event being passed in here, we could do that with underscore EV. You don't have to. Whatever you think. Toggle favorite. Okay. Let's call it toggle favorite. I passed in the flick as an argument. How would you change it in the array? That's actually the easier of the two. Yeah.
Well, because you can't really format it differently, so I just did the asterisk.
Okay. But what if I did this? What if I said favorite colon false on this? I just want it to become true. Yeah. Just set it to what it isn't now, right? Set it to the opposite of what it is now. It's like flick dot favorite equals not flick dot favorite, the opposite of flick dot favorite. Does that make sense? Let's see what that does. Thor, Hemsworth. Oops. I got an error. Favorite button is not defined. It's because I called it fav button. There you go. It's not favorite button, it's fav button. I just mistyped the name of a variable. It happens. Thor's. Thor. Hemsworth. Let's check our array. There it is. Favorite is false. What'd I do? What did I not do? A pin child, right? I made this lovely button that does just what I want, and then I never actually added it to the dang page. Item.append child. Fav button. Thor. Hemsworth. All right. App.flicks, square bracket 0. Favorite false. Click the button. Favorite true. Click it again. False again. So it turns it off and on, right? Cool. Mark flicks as favorites in the array. Not on the page yet, but that's a step in the right direction. Yeah.
Are things passed by reference in JavaScript?
Great question. Thank you for noticing. Anybody else happen to stumble upon this? She asked if things are passed by reference in JavaScript. I'll explain what that means here in a second. But So why did this work? Why did changing the flick here actually change it in the array? Did that seem a little strange? We didn't have to change the flick and then update the array, replace the old version of the flick with the new one. See what I mean? It just changed it right in the array. So the arguments get passed into functions by either reference or value. You may have learned this in computer science. So if they're passed by value, you're really passing in a copy of that thing. If they're passed by reference, you're passing in the thing itself. If you change it one place, it changes the other. You're not making another copy of this thing. You're actually pointing at the same address in memory. And the answer to the question is, in JavaScript, objects are always passed by reference. Values like strings, numbers, those are not. Those are passed by value. So you're always dealing with a copy of a string. But for objects, and keep in mind, arrays and functions are also objects, they're always passed by reference. So you're not dealing with a copy of it. You're dealing with the same thing. So let's show an example here. What'd you have for breakfast, Andrew? What'd you have at McDonald's? Pancakes. Sweet. Let's make a new variable, eats. And we'll just make that equal to food. What'd you have for breakfast today? Yeah, Jake. What'd you have for breakfast? Eats dot breakfast equals bagels with peanut butter and a banana. It's a long breakfast. Food dot breakfast, bagels with peanut butter and a banana. So I set eats to food, changed eats, and food changed too. So this is what we're talking about. Objects, which includes arrays and functions, you're not making a copy of it. I didn't just make a new variable with a copy of the same data as food. I actually made it the exact same object as food. So if I change eats, it changes food too. So that's why this works. So right this second, that's kind of handy. But it's also sort of surprising. It seems like this shouldn't have worked. But yeah, that's how it works in JavaScript. Strings, not the case, right? So if I said, just had a variable named lunch. What's cooking today, Ellie? What's for lunch?
I'm just gonna eat a lot of bread.
Well, it's already right there, bread. And let's make noontime meal equals lunch. Then let's set noontime meal. What's for lunch today, Andrew? Other Andrew? Barbecue. Check out lunch. Lunch is still bread. So things like strings, numbers, etc., they're passed by value. But objects, arrays, functions, they're passed by reference. Change it one place, it changes the other. So kind of surprising, but that's why this works. Make sense?